What's that off the port bow? It's a whole gaggle of chumbawumbas. Why? Because we've got so much to cover in so little time. Here on the Sorcerer's Apprentice Endgame Stanza 5 Recap Podcast. Chumbawumbas. D Hindley, do you know what chumbawumbas are? Do you get that reference?
Say what now?
Chumbawumbas. Do you get the Chumbawumbas reference?
That's what, that old 90s song? That's the best I got.
It's actually a deep cut Family Guy pool. Like back when Family Guy used to be good. It was the when Family Guy did their Willy Wonka parody in season 2 or 3 or something like that. The Chumbawumbas were the Oompa Loompas.
Right, yeah. No, I remember the Futurama parody of Willy Wonka, but the Family Guy one hasn't stuck with me.
Yeah, fair enough. I think the Futurama one is better. My point being, D Hindley's with us. Hey there, D Hindley. I'm sorry that I had to I was trying to top what it's Jabba the Hutt and I just couldn't do it.
No, I would come up with anything better. Don't worry about it.
So D Hindley is, of course, you are the co-host of Sorcerer's Apprentice Season 5 Endgame, and my God, it's great to have you on. You were like specifically when I found out Pi couldn't do it this week. You were specifically who I wanted because we actually met up at Knott's Berry Farm, so we have a little bit of a pre-ramble, a little bit of a history, even though that meetup was it was a little rush. It was like an hour and a half, but hey, we got to go on some stuff. I enjoyed a boysenberry ice cream cone. We talked some theme park history. We talked some of your world travels. So I feel like we're on good footing for the podcast. Like I feel like we kind of got the awkward introductions out of the way.
Yeah, now it's just the awkward regular chat. But yeah, I feel comfortable chatting with you. I think off before pretty well. This is a more awkward format. Really does kind of screw your voice up when you put it on live, doesn't it?
I've learned to live with it, but you know what? It's one of those things where if it makes you uncomfortable, then just if you're listening to it, I would mute it if you actually don't have it muted when you're doing the chat.
Oh, it's muted for me.
Okay. But yes, it's if you don't like the sound of your voice recorded, then don't listen to this back. That's all I can tell you because I haven't listened to one of these back in years, unless it's like a particularly good Disney debates or something, and I'm like, oh yeah, I made some really good points there. But other than like the rare, really good Disney debates, I never listen to any of these things back ever.
Fair enough. No, it's more just like the way your voice comes across before you went live, even cleaner. There's so much just extra, but not. We don't need to do troubleshooting the tech side of things, right? A lot to talk about.
Oh yeah. So all right. So I want to get like a good feel on you, man, because since this is your first time on the channel, I just have a couple questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually came over to WDW Magic from another site, and you were involved with another Imagineering contest on that site, right?
Yeah, I was part of the theme park apprentice contest on Theme Park Insider. I did. I won 2 regular seasons of that, and then I won the Tournament of Champions. The guy who won their first Tournament of Champions is actually James G, who's playing in Sorcerer's Apprentice right now. He's the other guy who came from that background. And
this is definitely something I need to keep tabs on.
It's a whole separate. There's about 10 seasons or so of it going on. That's where James's Americana 1900 concept was, and I've done things there also.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that would take, there's a lot of it's another history dive. As much as I was a little overwhelmed when I came over to WDW Magic with all the many different competitions going on here and figuring out the format. There's a lot more variety of format on WDW Magic with incorporating websites and visual aids, video, what have you. Um, the other sites pretty bare text generally. So, I mean, I've been able to spread my wings and do like the illustration, which I've been enjoying.
Hmm.
But
So,
it's interesting. I love the.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go on, Tiki.
All right.
No, no, you go.
No, I was just
After
gonna
you.
say, wrapping into that, how do you get involved with the Sorcerer's Apprentice? Like, how do you go from player to host, if you will?
Well, they asked me to. Um, it was sometime I think it day after the fight was announced. I guess Ace and KMB Kevin had both been already chatting with Space over hosting this season, and they needed a third, so I was the first person they contacted. Actually, no, it was before the finals came around. They asked me, and I said something to the effect of, to Ace, I said, "Okay, Ace, I'll join you unless someone else gets first place, and then they should have the right of refusal." But then Ace got first place, so I joined him.
Nice, nice. All right.
But
Okay, so
yeah, the
I'm sorry.
oh,
So
just
with that in
the
mind, you want to dive into this project?
sorry, what? I was yammering.
I'm sorry. I was just do you want to dive into the project?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Okay, so first of all, set the stage for how the idea for this prompt came about, because I know it's based on Stanza 5 from the previous season of The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
It is. So in season 4 last year, there was a fairly similar prompt with 8 parks, 4 from the Cedar, 4 from Six Flags, with the option being you could pick all the teams were combined like we did this year as well, made public, and the teams could pick 4 of the 8 parks, given $1 billion each to do as they wished with them. Basically, the premise last was that Disney had bought out both of the other franchises, got level budgets and potential IP. Uh, and I was the project manager last year. It was my favorite project year. I found it very freeing to be working with parks. They offer a different set of advantages from Disney or Universal. So I wanted to return to that a little deeper into the regional parks, which a lot of people don't really know that much about. But I wanted to get more recognition for a lot of these really awesome parks, and hopefully it was successful with that. People got to reach these tiny little places that have such unique personalities and atmospheres to them. There was a bit of a debate when we were planning it out exactly which parks we wanted to go with. And I think it was up until a week before putting the prompt out. Hersheypark wasn't in the short list initially. I replaced Knoebels, replaced that with Hersheypark. Ultimately, I decided Knoebels is way too weird to try to get people to understand it right away. Hersheypark's kind of the safest option in the whole bunch. So, yeah, anyway, so we had, of the 8 regional parks available, we had 2 pier parks. They had to choose one of each category. They had Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk or Morey's Piers in New Jersey. There were 2 Persian brand parks, that smaller park company have Silver Dollar, Dollywood. 2 parks in Pennsylvania, Hersheypark and Kennywood, and then 2 small family-run parks, Lagoon and Holiday World. So we divided between the 2 of them. The Team Heroes, all of the players combined together into Team Heroes. They picked Santa Cruz, Hersheypark, Dollar City, Holiday World. And then the 3 hosts, we went public as Team Villain. We got to play with the other 4. Sort of mirror what went on last year as well. And I think it scared the players more than maybe it should have. They took our threat seriously. And incidentally, we have Ace and Nate both listening in, it looks like.
All right.
So, hello, guys.
Yeah, glad you guys could join us. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get right into the projects. We're only probably going to have time to spend about roughly 5 to 10 minutes on each one of these, depending on how much both of us have to say about it. Now, one of the rules of thumb between Pi and I is that we're going to start with the project that you did not work on. So we're going to start with the Team Hero side of things, and that way, if we need to rush through anything, it'll be the stuff that you actually have experience in, and so we can kind of give the other team its due.
I totally agree.
All right. Okay, so with that in mind, let me switch the screen share over really quick. Oh, wait, hold on.
I mean, part of
not that one, sorry.
While Tiki getting this set up, I'll say one of the interesting things about this challenge, putting everyone in a single group and then subdividing them into 4 smaller groups with the 4 different parks to see, what kind of interesting we could get out of it. To intentionally get everyone to communicate together, but to also do some more solo creation at the same time. Forcing a different style of communication as a result, which it's hopefully going to get them ready for some of the challenges which come up later. Combined group activity and solo activity. So, I'm impressed with what our players were able to come up with. Some really neat ideas that I wouldn't have had. And so, looks like we got Santa Cruz. Dive into it.
Yeah, let's start with that because this is the only one of the parks that I've actually visited. Most of these, besides, I don't know, like Morey's Pier isn't really on my list. Kennywood, I could kind of take or leave, but like stuff like Dollywood, Silver Dollar City, Lagoon, I'd love to visit a number of these parks. But Santa Cruz is the only one that I have visited, and I've not just visited it. This was kind of my home away from home Disneyland style park before I knew that Disneyland even existed as a child. Like, to me, this place was as magical as Disneyland. And now it's just, now it is just kind of a collection of carnival rides, but it's got a few things that make it stand out for me, and I'm going to kind of illustrate. I'm sorry, D Hindley, I'm going to kind of have to go on a little bit of a soliloquy here because I am so familiar with this park. I'm basically going to illustrate here. Like, I appreciate the teamwork and effort that Twilight Zone and Nate put into this. I really do. I think they kicked ass in terms of working together and formulating ideas and all that. I really do think the problem is I don't know, Nate, if you're watching this, if you're still there, have you ever been to the boardwalk? I'm curious because D Hindley, this is something that you and I agree on, is that fundamentally, I think while they did do a good job of placing Disney type elements around some of the attractions, I don't necessarily think that's what the boardwalk needs, and I don't even necessarily think that's what people like about the boardwalk to begin with. So it's tricky. It's tricky. And the boardwalk, of course, has very limited space. I know you talked about the idea of expanding into a second gate on the wharf, which, that would be a pretty big undertaking if they actually got around to doing it. But of course, you'd have to close a variety of restaurants and private businesses there to do it. But, who knows what could happen. But I don't know. I don't know, D Hindley. I feel like there were some stones here that were kind of left unturned. I feel like they could have done more with the Haunted Castle revamp. I feel like they could have touched on some of the more historical stuff, like the Neptune's Kingdom mini golf area, the arcade. I feel like there's avenues that you could have explored with Santa Cruz that you would have gotten more bang for your buck rather than just like kind of putting some Disney level theming in a very cramped location. What do you think?
Well, first I'll say that Nate has responded. He has been there, but a long time ago, so he
Hmm.
doesn't remember very much. Twilight Zone has been there more recently and knows more about it. Also,
Okay. Okay.
about a per run. Um, anyway, I think Santa Cruz and also Morey's Piers are two pier parks, and I've been to both of them. I think the two are probably the most difficult parks of the entire list for those reasons you say, is they're very cramped, uh, have a unique pier park appeal, kind of similar in a way to the old school trolley parks. And you don't really want to undermine that with turning it into a sort of a Disneyland knockoff. I mean, that would, at that point, you're swimming upstream against another chain which does that sort of thing better. And the stuff, I mean, some of the stuff like that haunted attraction, Santa Cruz, the mini golf, Giant Dipper, of course, and just they're all super
The
accessible.
cave train.
The train was unfortunately closed when I was there. I would have loved to do that.
Oh man, that's a classic. That's a standby. I would put that up there with Calico, honestly.
I tried watching a YouTube of it when I got back home, and those never have the same impact as actually doing something.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to say. It looks neat. Like
I mean,
all of
it's got a completely different tone to Calico, but I feel like it's just as immersive.
immersive in its own way. It's
Right.
like, I mean, a lot of where Santa Cruz benefits is by being a little chintzy, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
It's that kind of that seedy pier park feel. I mean, Morey's is much, much seedier than Santa Cruz, and we'll get to that one. Uh, Santa Cruz has more of a California beach bum vibe, which is its own interesting quality. But
I
yeah,
would I really quick, I would describe the cave train. I've always described it as the Flintstones by way of Hunter S. Thompson.
yeah, I would throw in a little Bonk's Adventure if you remember that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What else? It's definitely a kind of acid laced Flintstones thing. I
uh,
think Mac made that instead of going Jetsons with Futurama, I suppose.
but the Haunted Castle is seriously, this is one of the things that I wish would have been expanded more on with the project. Is the Haunted Castle recently, I don't remember how recently, I think it was maybe like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. But somewhere in the last 10 years or so, it got a revamp. And that revamp is honest to God one of the best dark rides I've ever been on, Disney or no. I mean, it's not Haunted Mansion, but if you're saying like a non e-ticket dark ride, let's say, it's really good and it's a solid D.
It's a very good regional dark ride. One of the other parks, Knoebels, which was not a part of this whole challenge, but they have a dark ride there, which they actually call Haunted Mansion, which is the best dark ride that I've done outside of Disney, Universal, or Knott's. It I would say is it's more old school than what they have at Santa Cruz, but it has that same kind of feel of they're just throwing every scary idea they can into the mix. Santa Cruz, the ride vehicles are a lot more technologically advanced.
I
And
love the ride vehicles in Santa Cruz. I really do.
it's like the old Funhouse style dark ride given the best possible treatment
Hmm.
without abandoning what makes it a Funhouse dark ride.
Okay, here's the thing though. I remember the original Haunted Castle, and it was it was legitimately terrifying.
Okay. Would you
Like
consider the new
it
one
ended
terrible?
with this freaky demonic like bear, half man animate, like basically a man bear pig by all intents and purposes.
And Nate and Ace both feel that Knott's needs a new dark ride desperately. And I would
I feel like Kingdom of the Dinosaurs needs to replace Iron Reef. Iron Reef is just so awkward.
wholly agreed. I think we are all going to be in agreement with that. I'm very curious.
Either Kingdom of the Dinosaurs or Berry Tales, one of the two.
Dinosaurs means more to me because that was my childhood. Berry Tales predates when I was going
I
there.
think Berry Tales means more to the park, I
That,
would argue.
yeah, Berry Tales is going to be more iconic for Knott's. That one would be,
Uh-huh.
I would be ideally to replace Camp Snoopy, which itself is historical, or to rather not replace, but to rebrand it around Berry Tales would be an
Ooh,
interesting.
I like that idea. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, the train ride would be a good Berry Tales attraction.
Yeah,
All right, anyways.
this is definitely a tangent. Um,
Yeah. So the haunted boardwalk, here's one of the things is that yes, the haunted castle is there, but I don't necessarily think the carousel fits into this whole haunted aesthetic at all. Like the carousel is like the most charming, innocent, classic attraction on the boardwalk.
I love that carousel. I mean, that's one of those things that just proves you can't move too far away from the boardwalk feel without undermining what it is. Is that you have that beautiful historical Louvre carousel with and they even have the brass ring still going on.
Yeah, they have the brass rings, they have the pipe organ, they have the beautiful enclosed building, the clown face that you can shoot the rings into. I mean, I could literally just sit in that building for 20 minutes and just watch it and be entertained.
And to again draw comparison, Knoebels is the only other park I've been to that has a historic carousel in exactly that same vein.
Hmm.
In fact, the whole of Knoebels has that kind of historic preservation vibe, set in the middle of what feels like a campground from the 1950s.
Nice,
It,
nice.
it's not the topic at all, but I would strongly recommend anyone who has a chance to go there. It's in the middle of Pennsylvania, but I think it's geographically kind of more West Virginia.
Hmm.
It, it's awesome. Um, let's see. Okay, Nate is saying the carousel was one. the though attractions. We honestly didn't know where to put it. We also didn't want to change it. Oh, one of the tough attractions.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, Nate. That's the thing is that I feel like going with themed lands in general wasn't necessarily the best route for the boardwalk. Like, I think a better route for the boardwalk would be like take the this is just like a blue sky thing for me, you know. So I'm not saying you guys had to do this exactly. I'm just giving you an example of instead of doing like themed lands throughout the park, what I would do is I would take something like the mini golf at Neptune's Kingdom and reformulate it as a boat ride. And because you would have this big space, you'd be able to reuse animatronics. Like honestly, the whole mini golf area in itself kind of flows together to form sort of a Pirates of the Caribbean adventure into itself. So like I think reformulating Neptune's Kingdom into an attraction would be the way to go, or doing something with the arcade. Like, you know, that's the thing. Like, I feel like those are the creative spaces that you need to really consider with the boardwalk. They have the whole arcade and dance hall and stuff in that one domed building. And that whole thing could literally be gutted and turned into a massive Triotech dark ride.
Which, I mean, Triotech, that's Iron Reef, so there seems to be a kind of maybe an upper limit to how good that could be. Although the Justice League rides at Six Flags are better.
I'm honestly just throwing out Triotech because they're like the like 10 years ago I would have thrown out Sally.
Right. Okay.
Like Triotech is just like the most well known in the industry for regional dark rides right now.
I mean, I think the Justice League rides are Sally rides, I believe. So, I mean, of course, also we're assuming on a regional budget, they probably could go ahead and do that right now if they were so inclined. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
though the premise giving each park $250 million was not an arbitrarily chosen number. From my research, it seems like the original Hogsmeade at Islands of Adventure cost $500 million to create, and it definitely put Universal more on the map. I mean,
Oh
they have
yeah.
a set of attractions already there compared to like what Santa Cruz has, for instance. But if they could in some way have their version of a Harry Potter type of draw, and that's also kind of the reasoning behind the additions that Team Villains made, which we don't need to go into that direction yet. But just kind of how I was
So
kind of metagaming, thinking out the challenge when creating it, and
and so you guys know, I'm just going to warn you guys in advance. Not every project is going to take as long to get through as Santa Cruz. Like, and I'm sorry about that. That's just kind of the nature of the fact that Santa Cruz is a very personal park to me.
and honestly, it
I'm
was
sort of letting my bias show here a little bit.
we added Santa Cruz for your benefit largely.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Also, there's not very many
Pretty
other.
outspoken about how much I like Santa Cruz. I don't think I like Santa Cruz as a park quite as much as Knott's, but I mean, it's up there in terms of California parks.
It's definitely. I mean, it's its own personality, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else up there.
Uh huh.
Here's a minor tangent. Have you been to Gilroy Gardens?
Yes, I love Gilroy Gardens.
That's another super interesting, unique little
I
park.
mean, that's not a destination park for me because it's not like, you know, it's not really, there's no thrills or anything. And I am kind of a thrill junkie now.
Yeah,
But I mean, yeah, I really do like Gilroy Gardens just from a pure aesthetic point of view. It's a little ways out from me. It's about 3 hour. It's about a 3 hour drive out, so I'm probably not going to go there anytime soon.
oh, it
But
is.
yeah, Gilroy Gardens is a very interesting park.
I mean, for me, it's on the way. If I was driving to Santa Cruz, I would literally drive right past the entrance to Gilroy Gardens to get there. So, given that it would be a part of the Cedar Fair Platinum Pass, when I did my recent trip up to the Bay Area to see all the parks up there, I hadn't even planned on it necessarily, but it was so hard to pass up. yeah, it charmed me. I didn't expect anything from it, and it was just such a charming little botanical park.
I mean, any park with a people mover that goes through a giant greenhouse is okay with me.
Yes. Let's get back on track here.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like it's nice that you have all these things with a cohesive theme. I just like this is fine actually. You know what? I have nothing to complain about with this. This is fine. I always have thought that the area up on that roof above the go-karts could use a little thematic cohesion to it. So this is actually pretty well done for the most part.
I mean, I'll say the the actual thread, the brainstorming thread between Nate and Twilight Zone, was the best part of the entire stanza in its way. It was so much fun to watch them. Like they developed their own little private back and forth language. I couldn't understand what they were talking about most of the time, but their chemistry was amazing to watch. Like
Uh-huh.
just the best one-on-one two-person Imagineering I've seen in a while. Like okay, I'm shipping them.
Oh God. Oh God. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on the poor kids, man.
All right. Yeah, I just know they're both in California, so.
I know.
But yeah, that aside, it was. Oh, Nate, he's laughing. I think.
I mean, if they were just characters on a show, then sure, I'd go ahead and ship them. But since we're talking about literally real people with lives and everything, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
But
On from that.
yes. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. This is interesting because this is like I feel like Spooky Boardwalk or whatever it was called. I'm sorry. I feel like that kind of missed the mark. I feel like the last one, the Jungle Adventure area, was kind of just right. And I feel like this one is a little bit too ambitious, but it's in the right direction, though. It's in the right direction.
I liked their. There was a little bit of a land-wide story involving. Was it? Where just some of the some of the ideas that they used to connect the Giant Dipper with the log flume and a few of the other attractions in between.
Yeah, it honestly feels very Knots like in the way that Knots kind of like, has Calico as a running theme through like three of their major attractions at this point.
Right. I mean, I would be interested
Your
not
guys.
knowing the history of Santa Cruz, other than, of course, their super historic rides like the carousel or the coaster. What else in their past could be, that they've lost in between? What else could be revitalized and done to a modern standard? Bring back certain
Um,
concepts.
I mean, honestly, the most memorable dark rides that they've had in their history are the Cave Train and the Haunted Castle, and those are both still there. I don't think they've had any other dark rides. Um, like honestly, not much. Like they had like probably one of their most famous things that's not there anymore is a giant saltwater diving pool. And I don't think they bring back something like that nowadays, especially because it'd be replacing the Neptune's Kingdom. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. The park just doesn't necessarily have a history like that, and what history it does have is very well preserved. Um, so that's the thing. It's like I really do feel like that's why I like the idea of giving Logger's Revenge a storyline because it's something that is kind of an iconic part of that side of the boardwalk with the the giant green log flume and everything. But it's just always been sort of like, all right, you go up, you get a good view of the ocean, you go down, and so I don't know. I do think the park could use more stuff like that because, like I said, what's there, especially the cave train. I feel like the cave train is kind of like the big legacy attraction at the park.
And they
Like
said,
you saw the caveman sky glider, right?
yeah, what was that? You're talking about the caveman that rides around on the chairlift?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, that's one of those little wrinkles that makes a place like that so fun.
exactly. It's like that little caveman is like an iconic part of that park.
And I only like I didn't know he was an icon until I look. I'm like, what is that? Did some college kid just put that there?
Oh
I
god.
mean, who knows what those banana slugs might get up to.
Uh-huh.
But I need to get back out to Santa Cruz. There's other weird stuff out there that I've not seen yet. Like
Have you
there's
been to the mystery spot? Probably not.
oh, I haven't. Knott's used to have something like that. I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the Tilted Shack or whatever it was called. Yeah.
I called it the Slanty Shanty, but I don't think that was its name.
All right. Anyways, we need to get moving. Any final words from Nate on the feedback we've been giving him?
He says he loves the mystery spot. He said he did try to tie the rides together into a story that the Knott's similarity is a coincidence. I think we're just all like not part of our subconscious now, all us Californian Imagineers.
Right, right.
It's the first Knott's inspired thing that we've seen. And it's been kind of the running. I need to rewrite the finale to take place at Knott's.
Oh, please do. Please do.
But yeah,
Okay, really quick. I do like this area of the park. Because I have always envisioned this area like if you expanded the pirate theme out from Neptune's Kingdom, you could have a pretty cohesive flow going on with the pirate ship being the first ride you hit after Neptune's Kingdom.
yeah, I think you could do something with it. You might want to tie it into being an area of like an original boardwalk that was then taken over by pirates, maybe. But I mean, we're still just we're just brainstorming out loud right now.
Uh,
I mean, I think for time's sake, we should move on to the next parks.
okay, so Hersheypark. I'm not going to have nearly as much to say about this, but have you been there?
I've been there. I've been to five of the eight parks from this challenge. Hersheypark is, if anyone listening has been there, I'm afraid I might offend you, but I did not like Hersheypark very much at all.
Really? Hmm.
It struck me as a park that was trying way too hard to be Six Flags. Um, thing about it is the Chocolate World Dark Ride, which is Disney quality, but it's also technically not in the park, and it's technically run by a different branch of the Hershey Corporation, which explains why it's so substantially different. My favorite thing about the actual Hersheypark was their entrance. Um, and of course, the entrance, like since I went there, announced that they're completely overhauling the entrance to get it more in line with the bland, corporate look of the rest of the park. And the thing, and Behind the Magic has come in and says Hersheypark sucks, honestly. It has potential too, which is the worst part, which I would agree with 100%.
Wow, I had no idea there was such hate for Hersheypark. Literally, all I've ever heard about it is like, yeah, it's got a nice coaster lineup.
Oh, the coasters are good. They're also, for the most part, half as long as they should be.
Mm.
With a few exceptions, each coaster takes less than a minute.
Yeah, California Great America is kind of like that with their coasters.
I'd say I mean, Great America isn't as ambitious as Hersheypark, and it doesn't have the same potential. I think Great America, for what it tries to do, is a lot more successful.
Hmm.
Hersheypark is, I mean, Hersheypark, if they were to try, they could be at Cedar Point level almost, and they're not there. They have numerically their lineup is similar, but the quality of the rides is a lot more middling. I mean, they also have the potential to be a fully immersive park, which they've largely steered away from. They have this one Reese's Extreme Cup Challenge that I've called. It's one of the worst dark rides I've ever been on. I, it's basically it's a shooting dark ride, but all the targets are children,
Oh no.
and it has this whole extreme sports circa 2000 kind of
Oh
theme,
geez.
and it broke down on us when we wrote it twice. So just yeah. Also, I went out on the best coaster there. Arguably, is this dueling wooden coaster, which is a lot of fun. But that the cast members didn't manage to put my lap bar down, so it was completely loose the whole time.
Oh my God. Oh man.
That was terrifying. Oh, hey, Reese's challenge closed. Ace says that's cool. I assume Corvin is Ace. Um, so moving on to the projects that they did, since I was talking about the entrance and how they're changing it up. They're in my opinion, they're making the entrance a lot worse than it used to be. So the team that worked on this, they largely focused on adding a hotel and shopping area to the new entrance to try to salvage it, basically.
Hmm.
Which, given the conditions of what's going on at Hersheypark, this does seem like a good idea. And they're bringing in an idea like a chocolate waterfall, stuff that sounds like it should already be there but isn't. Yes, Corvin is Ace. I should probably know my co-host name by now. But yeah, was there anything in this particular project other than what they changed to the entrance area? Or was it all in the entry?
Well, there was the expansion to the zoo.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that zoo desperately needs some sort of love. It was. We only
Is
saw
it
the.
kind of like the for comparison's sake on my end, is it kind of like the animal area at Discovery Kingdom?
Similar. The animals at Hersheypark, and I know Pergron was involved with the zoo enhancements, and Pergron is a zoo professional in real life, so he comes in what he's talking about, and basically just I mean the idea of a little zoo area that's dedicated to North American animals. The ideas are great, but the execution is so bad. It just needs a top to bottom overhaul if you're going to keep it. Because as it is, it's just basically taking up space. Like they're trying to have too many things. A zoo, something like 15 roller coasters, Disney style rides. There are resort elements. Like there's this old timey 1920s hotel way up on the hill, um, overlooking the park. I assume in the winter times it gets shut down and they let Jack Nicholson take care of it. And it's all within the city of Hershey. It's this corporate city. Actually, the city has better theming than the theme park does.
Oh God, I can believe that.
The street lights are shaped like Hershey's Kisses. It's cute, and there's this kind of chocolate smell everywhere.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, I really don't have that much to say about this. It's like it's bare bones, but it's bare bones in a good way. It's kind of like just general TLC to help, make it like, it's not going to sell any tickets into the park, but it might make the park a more appealing vacation destination in its own right, if that makes sense.
It would be sort of like what Matt Weymouth was able to do with all the Cedar Fair parks in a way. Is I feel he was able to just take he improved the infrastructure,
Right, right.
food, the quality of the cast members, the general cleanliness, upkeep, just basically made them substantially, noticeably better than what Six Flags can do, without fundamentally altering what they are. And this is a good version of that, and I think it's exactly what Hersheypark would need. So, I mean, I think as far as presentation goes, I know they were generally for shorter presentations per park because of the scale of this particular stanza. And I think in general they nailed that balance. This particular was on a little, like it could have used maybe two more slides to just have a little more detail to sell it. But there's nothing wrong with the ideas.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you know what the program they use to make this is?
Uh, I think it's called Zoo Tycoon.
Oh, it's Zoo Tycoon, of course. I should have figured that. All right, that makes sense. It doesn't look like I think my the Hangouts is making this a little laggy right now, or else I'd show it off a little more. But cool to have a video to go along with it. That was a nice reference point.
Yeah, that's a lot of content to get into a small amount of space by doing that. Zoo Tycoon,
Uh-huh.
heavily modded.
All
So,
right. Unless you have anything else to say, let's move on to the next one.
all right, which one are we going to now?
We are going to go to Holiday World.
Yay! I've also been to this one.
All right. I assume this one is better than Hersheypark.
It is. Holiday World is incredibly bare bones. It's definitely a family run park. I don't believe it's changed ownership at all in its history. It's in this town of Santa Claus, Indiana. They back in the there they made this cheap little Santa's Village attraction to kind of take advantage of the town's name, and that expanded into Holiday World. They have other ones, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Fourth of July, plus this water park that all expand out from the Christmas entry area. The Christmas area still feels like something that was put together on a budget in the 1960s by a family in a small town. Um, like if you remember the old Santa's Village up in the Big Bear area, if you ever got to see that, that was
I
more
did not get to see that, but my dad has pretty vivid stories about it, so I feel like I have a pretty good feel for it.
okay. Well, that would I would say that was a bigger budget and fancier version of what Holiday World does, as far as the theming is concerned, at least. Their theming is simply they don't have the resources to do anything that they to do any more with it. They have some incredible rides. One of the best roller coasters I've ever done is Holiday World. The Voyage is the I want to say second longest wooden coaster in the after the Beast in Kings Island,
Mhm.
and it just hauls and it keeps on going forever. It's basically the platonic ideal of a classic wooden roller coaster. It's supposed to represent the Pilgrims crossing over the Atlantic, but anyway, enough about what's there. Let's focus on what the team did. Because they did primarily they rethemed the entire Christmas area to turn it into a proper immersive land using the Christmas theme that is already there. I mean, this is definitely a park that's fun to armchair Imagineer. It has all the holidays, and you could do anything you want to with them. So they added real attractions like a Rudolph family roller coaster and all sorts of other stuff. And then they added on later phases, which had less detail on the same improvements to the other lands in the park. And then also they created an April Fool's Land, which is a great idea, and a Valentine's Day Land. And I think at some point during this project, Valentine's Day actually occurred.
Yeah, I like this quite a bit. Like I'm out of all the parks, I am like, besides maybe Morey's Pier, I'm probably most unfamiliar with this park. But I mean, from what I can tell, I really think that they went out of their way to give it kind of a universal level feel to it, which is cool. Like this is sort of the level of immersiveness I would picture if Universal ever designed a Whoville land or something like that.
Yeah, I mean it has a different aesthetic than Whoville,
Of course, of course.
but it's definitely immersive. I mean they're keeping there's kind of a tricky needle to thread with Holiday World is they have a kind of generic take on the holiday is they're intentionally trying to not be offensive. So the Halloween land is very much just spooky black cats and jack-o'-lanterns and sheep ghosts. And what they've done is they've given it a little more bite, but it still isn't quite even at the level of Haunted Mansion in terms of being spooky. But they're aiming. The park is aimed at middle, Midwest, right down the middle, and I think they've maintained that balance with the improvements to Christmas and everywhere else. There was also they added a hotel, which James I know has been to this park, one that he was largely involved with, project manager for everybody around. He did a good job with that. But James has told me about they did their family trip down to Holiday World. They stayed in this motel in the town of Santa Claus, not run by the hospital, which makes a big difference. The hotel was supposed to be the raddest, seediest place he's ever been to. It's supposedly
Really?
themed to Christmas, but what it feels like is apparently just some guy's house that he decorated for Christmas circa 1970 and then never bothered to take the decorations down.
Oh, that's so weird.
Like from the description, it sounds like there was funky old shag carpeting and like full on cartoon mouse holes in the wall, so the rodents were just coming and going as they pleased.
Oh my God.
And that's not owned or operated by the Holiday World people. That's a separate cheesy little businessman in town. So they created an official Holiday World hotel connected to the entrance to answer that problem. Create somewhere to stay in Santa Claus, which is appealing. Because this place really is out in the middle of nowhere. You drive for 20 minutes through cornfields to get to it.
Really?
That's after you leave the interstate.
Uh-huh.
You're just going through, you think you're lost up until the point where
That'd be a long Uber ride.
you wouldn't Uber to get out here. We drove from Louisville, and it took like 3 hours to get there.
Oh, wow.
Is definitely you're not going to make it to Holiday World right now unless you're actively trying to. Probably the most remote park that I know
Huh.
of, amongst parks in the U.S. at least.
Uh-huh.
Well, okay, I'll take that back. Lagoon is also part of this grouping, and I think they're the only. Well, they're at least close to Salt Lake City, but there's also nothing else like it out there.
Uh-huh. For sure, for sure. All
But
right.
good job
Really
on
quick, really quick, as you said, I love the idea of the April Fool's Land. I love the artwork on it too.
I mean, a high compliment to pay to this project is I know you can't go into detail how much stuff we were asking for. This is one of those projects that I think revisited in the future with details fleshed out, and I would love that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. All right. Anything else we're missing?
Silverwood is pretty isolated as well, says Ace. I don't know where Silverwood is. I don't know that one. Do you know that, Tiki?
Yeah, I would not have any idea about that either. Um, it's funny, I consider Busch Gardens isolated, even though I know it's not. It's just like compared to like Orlando, it feels like such a long ride out there, and I really want to go. And I'm sure I probably will make it down there after RMC Guazi opens, but
Oh yeah, that's. I mean, if it has the potential to outdo Steel, that has that maybe what I'll do when that opens is get a full pass to all of the Busch slash SeaWorld parks because they're individually kind of pricey to get into. It seems.
uh-huh.
Um, and then make a very concerted effort to just see all of them within that year.
Yeah, I've never been to any of the Busch SeaWorld parks actually.
I was in SeaWorld San Diego as a kid, and I've never felt the need to go back there. Um, outside of this particular hypothetical, perhaps. But I mean, yeah, ranting about SeaWorld is
I
enough.
heard the new Manta coaster that they just opened up is a reason to go out there though.
Their coasters look decent. Their Manta coaster, it's at least 5 years old now, I think. The
Oh, is
Mako
it?
in Orlando looks like a better reason to go to that park.
Yeah, I drove by that and oh man, I really wanted to get down to SeaWorld on my not my last Disney World trip, but the first Orlando trip I took back about a year ago.
Yeah,
That killed me. I could have gone there on a Saturday and we just it was the price was just high enough to not be able to justify it, but I should have done it for Mako alone.
well, maybe wait until the Guanzi refurb and do the both of them on the same trip. That would be worthwhile.
Yeah, well, I know that I have a, Universal Orlando slash SeaWorld trip planned, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it out to Busch Gardens that trip. But since I doubt Gwazi RMC is going to be open until maybe 2021, anyways, we'll see what happens.
Okay, I thought they were getting it in 2020 because
They
every
might be. They might be.
20.
I'm just going based on the timeline of like Steel Vengeance announced theirs 2 years beforehand. So that's based on, they could get it a whole year ahead of time. That could very well be.
Yeah, Ace confirms summer 2020 Quasi. Ace also says that Silverwood is in Idaho, 1 hour away from the closest airport in Spokane.
Oh God.
Idaho, okay.
Well, I know that Cedar Point isn't exactly like super easy to get to from an airport either.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one the closest airport is. I've flown into a few different ones
Uh-huh.
because I think the it's easier to get to Kings Island because that's just right outside of Cleveland, if I'm remembering,
Yeah, right, right.
or Cincinnati. I can't tell the two of them apart yet. But yeah, Cedar Point, like Sandusky, is way up on its own up there. I mean, really, the reason to go there, Cedar Point is it's a destination park.
Uh-huh.
The closest thing any coaster park has to being a destination resort like a Disney World. They have their on-site hotel and extra restaurants outside the park, and a mile of beach looking out onto Lake Erie. So yeah, Cleveland or Detroit. Ace is just hooking us up with the knowledge right now. Ace says
Detroit Ace. That's actually one I've played around with because I have a friend who's in Michigan, so that is probably going to be my most likely option when I do make it down to Cedar Point is Detroit.
and if you do go to Detroit, go to Greenfield Village, the Henry Ford Museum area. That is a living history park. Ford invented a lot of the concepts Walt then borrowed from when he did Disneyland.
Huh. Interesting.
Main Street with an old timey train circling around it. They have the old steamboat boat thing circling a river. Like there's a lot of Disneyland DNA in it.
Nice, nice. I
So
don't necessarily think I'd be able to stop by because if I'm in Detroit, it'd probably just be for Sandy Claus to pick me up. But yes, my friend who lives in Detroit, his true screen name is Sandy Claus. But I digress. Anyways, we're getting like really off track here, and I actually kind of am thinking we might want to split this into two parts at this point.
well, should we at least cover Silver Dollar City now? Get all of the
Yes, we'll cover Silver Dollar City, but I'm saying if Ace is in the chat still, if he doesn't mind, since it was just you, Ace, and Kevin who did the Team Villains project, right?
right, and we basically
Yeah.
divided. Ace did pretty much exclusively on his own. Kevin had Dollywood, and I did Lagoon and Morey's Piers.
Okay, so if you guys don't mind, I think it'd probably be beneficial if we split it into two and did Team Villains on its own podcast.
Okay, yeah, if there's especially if there's call for that, but let's move on to Silver Dollar City now before time continues to
Okay.
burn away. And this one I have not been to. Ace wants to. Hey Ace, would you rather Pi talked about our project? Would you like me to yammer on still? But anyway, about Silver Dollar City, this was another really good mini proposal that they put out there. This park I haven't been to. I haven't been to Dollywood either. I don't really, other than by reputation and research, these Hersheyparks look charming to me, but I don't really know them. But I liked what they did. You can chime in whenever you want. But there was one thing that stood out to me especially was they made a couple of new lands using some of the existing infrastructure. And it's hard to work with this particular park, I think, because it's very hilly from what I
Yes, just like Dollywood, from what I've heard.
Yeah, and this was definitely a conversation we had about Dollywood. But they took the area around Time Traveler and they rethemed all of it to match Time Traveler. So they created this whole 19th century steampunk world. And one thing I said in my reviews, which I do stand by, is it feels like they're using Time Traveler as their version of C, the Society of and Adventurers.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hershey has the potential with some of the ideas they've created recently to create their own huge backstory, their mythos for all the different park space. And so what they were doing with that, they were expanding what's there. They added a couple of dark rides, which feel like they would be at a notch above level, quality done right, like this suspended gliding dark ride using a kind of a steampunky gliding device. Just sounds very appealing to me. And then there was also the Devil's Den area. I'm not talking about yet, but yeah, this stuff with the Wing Rights flying machine. and the Steamboat Caverns, which also the all the stuff that going on there.
Yeah, the Steamboat Caverns I really enjoyed because it was basically a steampunk version of Calico, and you know how much I like Calico.
Yeah, and one thing that Silver Dollar City was based around a real cave, uh, Marvel Caves they call it. I don't know how they got the rights to Marvel out there, but
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
the whole park is built up around a walk through real life cavern, which is still operating as an attraction within the greater park. And this feels like, yeah, they're bringing steampunky stuff. They're doing some Calico style, and they're incorporating it into the existing mythos of Silver Dollar City. So
Yeah, yeah, all really solid stuff.
yeah, a really good response to the unique theming and personality that this park seems to have. Same with the Devil's Den area. This one feels very similar to the Rainier Ridge from Stanza 2, with the kind of the mythic folkloric animals of North America, with a bit more of a regional focus. I think that the one thing about this one, which was a little confusing, maybe it sounds like they're trying to use the footprint of Thunderation, the mine train coaster. They're turning all of that into this new, and I've watched POVs of Thunderation, and it's on a really hilly area. I don't know if you'd actually be able to uh, reterrain everything to fit this stuff there.
Uh-huh.
Um, and Disney Dad says that he fell in love with Silver Dollar City while researching it, which totally understand. That's sort of how I feel just from what little I know.
I mean, I really do love parks that hinge on sort of like a gimmick like that. And so, another park I can think of that's sort of similar is how Six Flags Fiesta Texas has that quarry wall element to it.
Right. Just using the natural, like what they have there, which makes them unique, and bringing their own.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I liked about just doing these regional parks, as opposed to last year with Six Flags, I mean, the Six Flags parks tend to be very um, similar. You know, there's that one.
Yes, yes, no doubt. Even down to like the actual rides and names and M&M stairs.
Right, right. Um, but with these regional parks, every single one of them has its own really distinct identity. Um,
Uh-huh.
even the stuff that people may not have heard about before, like Holiday World or Lagoon, have they're not like a Six Flags park, which I'm more interested in seeing them than I would be to go and tour all the other Six Flagses in the U.S. I mean, I'd love to. Some of those Six Flags coasters they've got sound amazing, but the actual
Say it right now. Out of all the parks covered in this project, Dollywood is the one I'd most like to go to. Honestly, though, Lagoon is number two.
I've heard great things about Lagoon from friends who've been there.
I mean, Cannibal alone. Cannibal looks nuts.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to fathom. Uh, Beyond vertical drop that's over 200 feet tall. And it was all made in house. There's no manufacturer involved with that ride,
Yeah, yeah.
which is very
Oh,
of very many other coasters. I know Beast was made entirely in house way back in the 70s.
uh-huh.
But
Beast is another huge bucket list ride for me, as we kind of briefly talked about in our meetup.
right. And I think this is a good kind of tangent to be having with this stance's topic is just all of these other places in the US, these other fun parks, which when you start scratching the surface, I'll throw another big shout out to Knoebels in there, which is one of the most unique and fun parks I've ever been. Just walking through it.
Remind me what Noble's flagship coaster is.
Their flagship coaster is Phoenix. It's this
Phoenix, right, right.
the wooden coaster. They bought it from an old park in Texas that was going out of business. The original coaster is from the 40s, I want to say. They numbered and labeled every single plank of wood and reconstructed it up in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's considered one of the perfect examples of an old school wooden roller coaster. Like it has
From what
perfectly
I've heard.
engineered. And Ace is saying that his number one coaster there, the one he's interested in, is Flying Turns, which is a wooden bobsled coaster that they built in house a few years ago. Well, they started building it back in 2010, but they didn't complete it until maybe 2015 or 16.
Huh, interesting.
Because they were working off of vintage photos of
Yeah, yeah.
20s. That one, yeah, that one's fun. I think Phoenix is still considered to be the most noteworthy coaster there. They also have their dark ride called Haunted Mansion, which is a really funky old school bus bar dark ride.
Nice, nice.
Just like there's a part on that where you're riding through darkness and they have yarn hanging from the ceiling, but it's supposed to be spider webs that are over your face.
Uh-huh.
It's such a like it probably cost them 50 cents to add that particular detail, but it stands out as being of very much it's something Knoebels would do. It's basically like if you gave Carney's free reign to make a permanent theme park, that's what they would come up with.
All right. Okay, anything else to say about Silver Dollar City?
Um, I think there was a bit more that we haven't touched on. Maybe oh yeah, they did a hotel here, I think, which had a bit of a sort of a wilderness lodge vibe going on. One of these projects used a photo of Wilderness Lodge. Is that must be it there?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, speaking of Wilderness Lodge, I find it kind of hilarious that they called it Trails End because I know that's a really sought after restaurant in Wilderness Lodge.
Okay.
Or no, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that's in Fort Wilderness, actually, Trails End.
You know better than I do. Yeah, that's my blind spot, everyone. I Orlando.
Uh-huh. All
So
right.
yeah, well we've now covered everything from Team Heroes at least.
Yeah, I think that a good thing to do would probably be I don't know if you'd be available to cover Team Villains. I don't know if Pi wants to do it, but we can talk off air about that.
I could. I it would be interesting to hear Pi's take, since he's he wasn't involved in the creation. I
Uh-huh.
mean, for certainly for two of the parks, I would just be talking about why I did what I did, and that's not as interesting. And welcome, Space Mountain, 72 minutes late to the podcast.
Yeah, come on, Space. Get with the program.
Uh, Trails End is the buffet in Fort Wilderness. That was Space's first comment. Of course, yeah, we misrepresenting Wilderness Lodge automatically summons Space Mountain.
All right. Um, well, one of the things I can tease you, one sec. This is one of the most brilliant concepts I've ever seen in an armchair imagineering competition.
What, the dinosaurs?
I love the hell out of this. It works so well. Like honestly, this is the type of thing I wish Galaxy's Edge was.
I would be interested in hearing more about that. I had
I,
fun
I
with
am I am
Tiki.
completely in love with this concept, like through and through.
Yeah, I was basically with this one. I was just creating what I wanted to see, basically.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's like chocolate and peanut butter. It's like cowboys and dinosaurs. It works so well. It's flawless. So that's kind of like a cliffhanger. I'll kind of leave it there. I'm very, very excited to talk about this. And honestly, it's kind of like when I think of Lagoon now, I'm gonna have to think like, oh yeah, that dinosaur land doesn't actually exist. All
That
right. Any final thoughts, D Hindley? Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks to everyone in the comments for contributing to the chat. I'm sorry we could only get through half, but honestly, I feel like it's probably for the best, so we don't like rush over any of these projects. I feel like these projects, and more importantly, these parks deserve their due. So,
and definitely, I agree. Yeah, these upcoming parks that we haven't really discussed yet are. I mean, all of these parks are fascinating, unique places. So, and Disney Dad says that yeah, he's very intrigued by Lagoon. It's one that he wanted to work with as well. So,
uh,
um, I guess until next time, then.
all right, see you guys later, and hopefully I'll be able to come up with an intro next time that's better than frickin' Chumbawambas. All right. All right, guys. Have a good night.